if you are a newcomer to Canada, whether you're a temporary resident or a permanent resident, or maybe you're just here with a work visa, we're going to go over exactly how to get a mortgage as a newcomer to Canada. And with me, as always, I have Alex Lavender here, a certified mortgage broker right here in Halifax. And Alex, the people want to know, is it possible to get a mortgage and buy a home as a newcomer to Canada?
It is. There's a couple different programs, new to Canada programs, and sometimes using a foreign credit bureau if required. But yeah, we do have some new to Canada programs. It just kind of depends on how it fits in the box, how much time is in Canada, and what the status in Canada is, whether it's work permit status or permanent resident, etc.
So let's go over the different types of status that newcomers have here in Canada. And I want you to tell me if it's impossible or possible for each of them to get a mortgage. So what about someone here on a work visa? Is it possible to get a mortgage if you're on a work visa?
Yeah, so, and we have to clarify one thing as well, because there's a foreign buyer's ban currently in effect as well. So there's mortgage qualification, and then you have to make sure that you adhere to the foreign buyer's ban. So work permit, yes. In terms of qualifying on the foreign buyer's ban side, there needs to be 6 months of validity left on that work permit after the day of closing. So that is kind of one thing to keep in mind just for the foreign buyer's ban, which is a whole separate thing. But to qualify for a mortgage, yes, work permit, you can use the New to Canada program for credit.
Okay, and what about a temporary resident? Is it possible to get a mortgage as a temporary resident in Canada?
Temporary resident, yes. If you have a work permit, study permit is very unlikely to get approved, especially because the foreign buyer's ban restricts it.
Okay. And what about a permanent resident? If someone's a permanent resident, is it possible to get a mortgage in Canada?
Yeah, permanent resident is great. Great for the foreign buyer's ban as well. So permanent resident, a lot of the times it's going to be very similar to how they're going to treat a Canadian citizen. So permanent resident would if you can't get Canadian citizenship, permanent resident is going to be the next best thing.
When it comes to getting a mortgage, I know that having like credit history is so important to getting approved. So how do mortgage lenders in Canada handle it when a newcomer comes in and says, "Hey, I'm new to Canada. I don't really have much credit history." How do lenders approach that? Like, is it still possible to get like a decent interest rate and a mortgage approved?
Yeah, you can get a great interest rate, 5% down payment, just like everyone else would be entitled to, as long as some requirements are met. And it depends on the amount of time you've been in the country and if you have any established credit history at all. So typically the minimum amount of time is like 6 months of history in Canada. They want to see like 6 months of like credit card if possible, but if not, they may look at rent deposits or some bills being paid out of a bank account. Usually at 6 months, they're going to want a 10% down payment. If you can get a year worth of history, they're probably going to allow you 5% down, as long as that's a clean credit history. If it's just one piece of credit, then they might want to see the rent, coming out of your account as well, or some other payments. It's one of those programs that, they have a lot of different kind of options to kind of suit a lot of these. So it's kind of hard to generalize it. It's a little bit more case by case. And then another one is if you're coming from a country that is a previous or is currently an Equifax reporting country, then we may be able to use a foreign credit bureau to get past all of those and allow 5% down. So, one that comes to mind is United States. We see people coming up from the United States. They have an Equifax credit bureau down there. We can pull an international credit bureau from the state. Lenders can review that. If it's satisfactory, then, they're all good. If you're coming from another country that doesn't have an Equifax credit bureau, then we're going to have to look at using one of those other parameters for the New to Canada program.
Okay, thank you. That's super detailed. I have a question about it. If you say don't come from a country that doesn't have an Equifax reporting bureau, is there any way for a newcomer to use their previous like mortgage from another country or like their banking statements? Can they use that foreign sourced income or like credit history to like show and get approved for a Canadian mortgage?
Typically not. Typically not. It would be rare that they would use that. So I'm going to say for the most part, no. The other problem that you start to run into is it's in a different language a lot of the times, and that requires a professional translator involved. So we see a lot of the times clients are maybe coming from another country. They have down payment money in another country that doesn't use English as the main language. Let's say I don't know, Thailand or something. I can't think of one off the top of my head. But what happens is we need to get all of those bank statements professionally translated by a certified translator into English, signed, and it's a whole process to even be used for the down payment. So if they were to do something like that, there would have to be a whole translation process as well, which would be very cumbersome. But maybe, but it's very rare that they would use that.
Okay. What extra documentation do newcomers need for mortgages that would be beyond what most Canadian born applicants would see?
One of the biggest things is like, the proof of residency, so like the work permit or, the PR. So they're going to want to see that, which is out of the norm of traditional Canadian citizens typically. And then they're going to potentially want additional credit if it's required. So they may want those bank statements to show the rent's being paid on time. They may want, a utility that's been paid monthly. They may want utility statements. So, depending on what documents are available, they might get a little bit more creative and ask for certain things, just to offset that credit piece for the most part.
So you said that people can take their cash from a foreign country, bring it into Canada, and use that as a down payment with like translation services and making sure it's all sourced properly. But what about people using, let's say, a foreign owned home as like an asset to help their income to debt ratio? Are they allowed to use like a foreign owned home as saying, hey, I own this house outright, or maybe only have a really small mortgage on it? Does that help them get approved for a mortgage in Canada?
No, it wouldn't. And that, if anything, it would actually hurt the debt ratios, believe it or not. So let's just think about it here. If someone owned a home in Canada, let's say you own a cottage and you have no mortgage on it. It's just free and clear. Let's say it's worth $1 million. You have $1 million asset now. It's actually a negative on the application because it's not liquid. So a lender's not going to really classify that as $1 million liquid money in the bank. It could be worth whatever you say it's worth. And then they're going to have to factor in property taxes on that property. And they're also going to put an allocation for heat. Maybe it's $100 a month. So now you've got the debt obligation of property taxes and heat on the application, actually bringing it down. So yeah, in a foreign country, it would make it even more difficult. Again, everything would need to be translated, etc. So yeah, it wouldn't be much of a benefit until it's cash in the bank in Canada.
Okay. And I want to talk about the down payment required, and I just make sure we have this super clear for everyone. So if you've been here for at least 6 months and under a year, you can get like a 10% down payment requirement. But if you've been here for over a year, you can get a 5%, like your standard down payment, minimum down payment. Is that right?
Generally speaking, there are exceptions to that rule. Like, I mean, if you've been here for 6 months and you have 3 credit cards that have been paid on time, they may allow you to do 5% down because that's a solid amount of credit history. Also, if you're coming in with from a country that has an international credit bureau, like the US, and you've been here for 2 months, they can use that right away. So those time requirements aren't going to be as important. It's just the most important thing is when you come to Canada, you want to get 2 credit cards right away. Make sure there's no missed payments. Keep paying on them every month, using them, and every month that goes on, you're just gonna have more and more credit history. The more, the better.
Okay, so you recommend getting 2 credit cards as a newcomer to Canada right off the bat.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through, like, if you were to list out 3 to 5 things that a newcomer to Canada should do as soon as they arrive in order to set themselves up to get approved for a mortgage? What would those like 5 items be?
Yeah. So if your work permit doesn't have much time on it left, you want to make sure that you're re-extending that so that you have at least 6 months left of validity on the work permit. So that would be a main one. Get those 2 credit cards right away. Start building up some credit history. You want to find a job. That's another one. We're going to need the income on the application. You're going to want to source your down payment. So if you are taking money from another country, you're going to want to get that in Canada as soon as possible. The longer it's been in Canada, the better. There may be documents required for that transfer, but that's kind of case by case depending on the country it's coming from as well. And then the fifth thing I would say is it's never too early to talk to a mortgage broker. I've met with people that have been in Canada for a couple weeks. They don't qualify today, but all they wanted was, what do we need to do so that we can qualify in a year's time? And now they have a great path. They know exactly what they need to do. They've got a checklist, and I feel confident they're going to come back, in a year's time and be ready to go.
I think that's so insightful to like actually go and start working with a mortgage broker, because you can start to set yourself up for success as opposed to like forgetting about it and not planning for the future, and then, ending up in a relationship and all of a sudden you wanting to buy a house and you don't have those right credit history items in place, or maybe you let them go and you ruined your credit history and your credit score. So if you want to get started by working with Alex, then use the link down below or go to alexlavender.com. And if you have any questions about getting a mortgage, whether you're a newcomer or you are a Canadian, welcome, and let us know in the comments on this video any questions you have about getting a mortgage, and we'll be sure to answer them. And of course, subscribe to Alex Lavender on YouTube, and we'll see you in the next video.